My name is Harper, and I'm 34 years old. She walked into my cafe one stormy night, calling herself Emily. Quiet, polite, almost fragile. But when I found the ID she'd hidden in her purse, my blood ran cold, because it belonged to a woman who'd vanished months ago, and everyone believed she was dead. I own a tiny cafe on the edge of a quiet coastal town in Oregon, the kind of place where the rain never quite stops, and everyone knows everyone else's business. I opened it after my divorce 2 years ago, needing something stable to cling to. I thought I'd left all surprises behind, but I was wrong, terribly wrong. It was a Wednesday evening, the kind where the rain comes sideways and the streetlights blur through the storm. I was closing up, wiping down the last table, when the door opened with a jingle of the bell. A young woman stepped in, soaked from head to toe, her hair plastered to her face. She looked about mid-20s with trembling hands clutching a worn leather purse. "I'm sorry," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I saw the light on. I need somewhere to get warm." I nodded toward the counter. "Sit down. I'll make you something hot." She smiled, a small, nervous kind of smile, and sat at the far end of the counter like she didn't want to bother anyone. I poured her a cup of cocoa and slid it across. She cupped it like it was the only warm thing in her world. After a few minutes, she introduced herself. "I'm Emily. Just Emily. No last name, no details." She said she just arrived in town and was looking for work. Her eyes darted to the help wanted sign I'd hung up that morning, one of those impulsive things I'd done without expecting anyone to answer. Something about her tugged at me. She looked fragile, not weak, but the kind of fragile that comes from trying too hard to hold yourself together. Against my better judgment, I told her she could start part-time the next day. Over the next week, Emily became part of the rhythm of the cafe. She was quiet but reliable, always arriving early, keeping to herself. Customers liked her gentle manner, and she worked hard, but there was something haunted about her. Every time someone asked where she was from, she'd fumble the answer, mumbling about up north. When the mailman made friendly small talk, she'd excuse herself to the back. I told myself it wasn't my business. We all have things we'd rather forget. But something about her didn't add up. One afternoon, after closing, I found her purse sitting on the staff room bench. I figured she'd left it by mistake, so I called out for her, but she was already gone for the day. I picked it up, meaning only to put it aside for her, but the flap was open and something caught my eye. A driver's license, half sticking out of the wallet. I froze when I read the name, Rachel Moore. For a moment, I thought maybe Emily was using someone else's ID. Maybe it was an old one, or a fake. But when I looked closer, I saw the photo. It was Emily. Same brown eyes, same faint scar above her eyebrow. The name on the card hit me like a wave. Rachel Moore. I'd seen it before, on a missing person poster in town about 6 months back. The local sheriff had put up flyers for a woman who'd vanished after a domestic dispute. The picture was grainy, but it looked just like the girl sitting in my cafe every morning. My first instinct was disbelief. It couldn't be her. Maybe it was a coincidence, someone who just looked like Rachel. But the more I stared at the ID, the more the truth crawled over me like ice. It wasn't just similar, it was her. I sat there for a long time, staring at that name. The memory of the missing person alert wouldn't leave my head. The words, "presumed dead," flashing in bold letters on the news article I'd read back then. Why would a missing woman be working under a fake name in my cafe? Why pretend to be someone else? And more importantly, who or what was she running from? I slipped the ID back exactly where I'd found it, my hands shaking. I didn't want her to know I'd looked. I told myself I'd give it back tomorrow. Maybe casually ask if Rachel was her sister or something innocent like that. But the truth was already gnawing at me. When I locked up that night, I couldn't stop thinking about her. The way she flinched whenever the door opened. The way she checked the window before leaving, scanning the street like she expected someone to be there. The storm outside had eased, but inside my chest, something new was brewing. Suspicion, dread, curiosity, all tangled together. By morning, I had convinced myself to let it go. I didn't want to play detective. I'd had enough drama in my life. But when Emily came in that day, smiling softly and thanking me again for the job, I couldn't look at her the same way. Her kindness felt like a mask now, one she wore too easily. That afternoon, while she was serving coffee to a couple by the window, I caught sight of her reflection in the glass. She looked pale, distracted, like someone afraid of being seen. Maybe she noticed my eyes on her because she turned and asked, "Everything okay?" I forced a smile and nodded. "Yeah, just tired." But my mind was anything but tired. It was racing. When she left for the day, I checked the purse again, not to snoop, but to be sure I hadn't imagined it. The license was still there, the name clear as day, Rachel Moore. I sat back, the hum of the fridge filling the silence. Outside, the sun had dipped behind the clouds again, casting the cafe in dim orange light. I stared at the door, waiting for her to return, half hoping she'd explain everything, half terrified she might. And just as I whispered to myself, "Who are you really, Emily?" the door creaked open. She was standing there, her damp hair clinging to her neck, a small smile on her lips. "I think I left my purse," she said softly. I swallowed hard, my heart pounding so loud I could barely hear my own voice. "Yeah," I said, forcing a calm I didn't feel. "I've got it right here." That ID wasn't just fake. It belonged to a woman who vanished 6 months ago. I couldn't shake the image of that driver's license. The name Rachel Moore clung to me like a ghost. That night, after Emily had gone home, I sat in bed with my laptop, the cafe's books forgotten on the nightstand. I typed "Rachel Moore missing" into the search bar, half hoping nothing would come up. But it did. There she was, the same brown eyes, the same soft smile, in a photo pulled from a local news article dated 6 months ago. The headline read, "Woman missing after leaving abusive relationship in Sacramento." My stomach dropped. I clicked on the story. According to the report, Rachel Moore had filed multiple restraining orders against her husband, Ethan Moore, a real estate developer known for his temper and influence. She disappeared one night without a trace. Police suspected she'd been kidnapped or worse, but there was no evidence, no body. Her husband claimed she'd run off with someone else. The investigation went cold, and now she was in my cafe, pretending to be someone else. For a long moment, I sat there staring at her photo on the screen, then glanced at the purse on my counter. The resemblance was undeniable. Same mole on her cheek, same scar near her brow. The only difference was her name, Emily. My heart thudded in my chest. Should I call the police? Should I confront her? What if she was Rachel, alive, hiding, terrified? I spent the rest of the night replaying every word she'd said since I met her, the way she'd hesitated when I asked where she was from, the way she'd looked over her shoulder whenever someone new walked in. By morning, I was running on coffee and nerves. When Emily showed up, her hair tied back neatly, her eyes red like she hadn't slept either, I decided not to say anything, not yet. I wanted to know the truth before doing something I couldn't take back. That day, I watched her closely. Every time a police cruiser rolled past the cafe, she froze. Once, when the sheriff himself came in for coffee, Emily nearly dropped a tray of mugs. She mumbled something about needing air and slipped into the back. It wasn't just fear, it was panic. The kind that comes from knowing someone dangerous is still out there. That night, I called my best friend Jenna. She'd known me since college, and if there was anyone I could talk to, it was her. I told her everything, the purse, the ID, the article. There was a long silence on the other end before she sighed. "Harper," she said, "you can't get mixed up in this. If she's hiding, she's got a reason. And if she's dangerous, she's not dangerous," I cut in. "She's scared." "Scared people do desperate things," Jenna said softly. "Promise me you'll be careful." I promised, though we both knew it was a lie. The next morning, before Emily arrived, I took the ID from her purse one last time. My hands trembled as I placed it on the copier in the back office and made a copy. I wasn't sure why. Maybe I just needed proof in case she vanished again. I put the real one back, exactly as I'd found it, and hid the copy in a locked drawer at home. For a few days, nothing unusual happened. Emily worked quietly, always polite but distant. Then a new face began showing up at the cafe. A man named Liam. He was a regular from another town, tall, with sandy hair, and the kind of calm presence that put people at ease. He'd order the same thing every morning, a latte and a cinnamon scone. At first, Emily barely acknowledged him, But after a few visits, she started to smile when he came in. I caught her laughing with him once, genuinely laughing, and it startled me. I hadn't realized how tense she always looked until I saw her relax for the first time. Still, there were moments when that shadow crept back into her eyes, especially whenever her phone buzzed. I'd glance up from the counter and see her reading a message, her face draining of color. She'd turn the phone face down and excuse herself to the back alley. One evening, I followed her, not to spy, at least that's what I told myself, but because I was worried. The sun had already dipped behind the ocean, leaving the street bathed in that eerie gray twilight. Emily stood behind the dumpster, her phone pressed to her ear, whispering frantically, "Please don't. Please. I can't go back. You don't understand. He'll—" Her voice broke, then silence. She ended the call and slid down the wall, burying her face in her hands. I took a step forward. "Emily?" She startled like I'd shot her, eyes wide, cheeks streaked with tears. "I'm fine," she said quickly, wiping her face. "Just a bad call." Before I could ask more, she stood and hurried past me into the cafe. That night I couldn't sleep. The image of her crying in the alley replayed in my mind like a stuck record. Whoever she was talking to, whoever she was running from, it wasn't over. The next morning, the air felt heavy before the storm. I was setting out pastries when Emily arrived early, her face pale, her hands shaking. She glanced toward the window every few seconds, like expecting something, or someone. "Emily?" I asked. "Are you all right?" She nodded, too quickly. "Just tired." I didn't press. Not yet. But just as I turned to refill the coffee pot, the low growl of an engine outside made her freeze. A sleek black SUV pulled up across the street, its tinted windows reflecting the gray sky. Emily's hand flew to her mouth. All color drained from her face. I stepped closer to the window, peering out. "Do you know that car?" She didn't answer, just whispered, so faintly I almost didn't hear it. "He found me." The bell above the cafe door jingled. The SUV engine stopped, and for the first time since I met her, Emily looked truly terrified. The man in the SUV claimed to be her brother, but Emily's eyes said otherwise. The bell above the cafe door jingled, and a rush of cold air swept in. I looked up from behind the counter just as the man from the black SUV stepped inside. He didn't look like someone passing through. He looked like someone who already owned the room. He was dressed sharply, dark coat, expensive shoes, everything about him polished and deliberate. His hair was neatly combed back, his jaw tight, his expression the kind of calm that feels more dangerous than anger. He scanned the cafe once before his gaze landed on Emily. "There you are," he said smoothly, like they'd just run into each other at a grocery store. Emily went still. Her hand trembled so badly the coffee cup she was holding slipped and shattered on the floor. The sound made everyone in the cafe turn. "Emily?" I asked quietly. She didn't answer. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. The man stepped closer, smiling, but it wasn't friendly. "You must be her employer," he said to me, extending a hand. "I'm Ethan, Emily's brother. She's been going through a rough time." I hesitated. His handshake was firm, too firm. His eyes were pale gray, cold and unreadable. "Brother?" I repeated, glancing at Emily. She shook her head almost imperceptibly, a single tear sliding down her cheek. Ethan continued like he hadn't noticed. "I've been looking for her for months. She's unwell, left home without telling anyone. We've been worried sick." Emily finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not going with you." The man's jaw tightened, but his smile didn't falter. "You don't know what you're saying, Em. You need your medication." Something inside me snapped. "Maybe you two should talk privately," I said, stepping between them. "Emily, could you help me in the kitchen for a minute?" Ethan started to protest, but I didn't give him a chance. I led Emily into the back, closing the door behind us. She was shaking, her breath coming in short, shallow bursts. "He's not my brother," she whispered. "He's my husband." For a moment, the words didn't make sense. Then everything, the fear, the fake name, the ID, clicked into place. "I thought he was going to kill me," she said, her voice trembling. "I ran the night he threw me into a wall. He told me if I ever left, he'd find me and make me pay. I changed my name. I left everything behind, but he found me." I stared at her, trying to process it. So, Rachel, that's your real name? She nodded slowly, tears spilling over. Rachel Moore. But please, don't say that name out loud. If he hears it, I cut her off gently. It's okay. You're safe here. Safe. The word felt hollow, even as I said it. Because if what she said was true, she was running from a man who didn't seem like the type to give up easily. In the front room, I could hear Ethan's voice, calm but sharp, talking to a customer, probably trying to sound casual. My heart pounded in my chest. What do you want me to do? I asked. She wiped her face, her hands trembling. Just let him leave, please. Don't tell him where I'm staying. A knock came at the door, and Ethan's voice followed, low and measured. Everything all right in there? I forced a smile before opening it. Yes, just cleaning up. She's fine. He stared past me at Emily. We need to go, he said, his tone soft but laced with control. She's not going anywhere, I said. She's working right now. His smile vanished. For the first time, I saw what Emily had been afraid of. His eyes hardened, not angry, but something colder, something calculating. I don't think you understand the situation, he said. She's my wife. I have every legal right. I don't care who you are, I interrupted, my voice shaking but firm. You need to leave. He stepped closer, lowering his voice so only I could hear. You have no idea what you're getting into, Ms. Harper. She lies. It's what she does. You'll regret this. Get out, I said again, louder this time. For a moment, I thought he might hit me. But then he smiled again, that same cold, practiced smile. Fine. But if you're harboring her, you'll be hearing from me, and from the police. He turned and left, the door slamming behind him. The sound made Emily flinch so hard she nearly dropped the towel she was holding. When the SUV finally pulled away, I locked the front door and turned the sign to closed. My hands were still shaking. He knows where you work, I said quietly. You can't go back home tonight. Emily nodded, looking defeated. He'll wait. He always waits. Then you'll stay with me, I said. Just for tonight, until we figure out what to do. She tried to protest, but I wouldn't hear it. I couldn't send her out there alone, not after seeing the way he looked at her. That evening, I drove her to my apartment above the café. It wasn't much, 1 bedroom, a small kitchen, and a couch that had seen better days. But it was safe, and that was all that mattered. I made her tea, and we sat in silence for a long time. Finally, she spoke. You shouldn't have gotten involved, she said softly. He's not going to stop now. He'll hurt you too if he thinks you're helping me. I tried to sound braver than I felt. He's not going to hurt anyone. We'll go to the police in the morning. But deep down, I wasn't sure if I believed that. Emily eventually drifted off on the couch, clutching a blanket like it was armor. I checked the locks twice, then 3 times, before finally heading to bed. For the first time in years, I slept with the lights on. Sometime after midnight, I woke up to the faint creak of a floorboard. At first, I thought it was the wind, until I heard the sound again, closer this time. My pulse quickened. I slipped out of bed and peeked into the living room. The couch was empty. Emily, I whispered. No answer. The front door stood wide open, the cold night air rushing in, curtains fluttering like ghostly hands. And Emily, or Rachel, was gone. She was gone, but her purse was still on the counter, and the ID was missing. The first thing I noticed was the cold. The front door gaped open, the night air seeping in and brushing my bare feet like fingers of ice. For a second, I just stood there in the dark, trying to make sense of it. Then the realization hit me. Emily was gone. Emily? My voice came out shaky, barely above a whisper. No answer. Only the sound of the wind outside and the faint rattle of the door against its hinges. I grabbed a flashlight from the counter and swept the beam through the apartment. Her blanket was still crumpled on the couch. The tea mug sat half full on the table, cold and untouched. Her purse, the same one with the missing person's ID, was sitting right where she'd left it earlier. But the lock wasn't broken. There was no sign of a struggle. That meant she'd opened the door herself. I rushed over and peered down the hallway, but there was nothing. No movement, no sound, but the rain hitting the pavement outside. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it might crack a rib. I closed and bolted the door, then turned back toward the purse. Something about it felt wrong now, like it didn't belong in my home. I opened it, hoping for a clue. Maybe she'd left a note or her phone. Instead, I found the wallet, the lipstick. But the driver's license was gone. I knew instantly what that meant. She must have taken it with her, or someone else had. Then I saw it, a scrap of paper on the kitchen table, folded once and smudged with what looked like damp fingerprints. I unfolded it carefully. The words were scrawled in a shaky hand. Don't trust him. That was it. No signature, no explanation. My stomach dropped. Don't trust who? Ethan? That would make sense. She'd told me he was dangerous. But what if she meant someone else? Someone I hadn't even considered. My hands were trembling as I grabbed my phone and dialed the local sheriff's station. It rang twice before a dispatcher answered. Sheriff's office. Hi, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. My employee, she's missing. She might be in danger. Her name's Emily, but... Ma'am, slow down. What's her full name? I hesitated. That's the thing. I don't know her real name. I found an ID that said Rachel Moore, but... Rachel Moore? The woman's tone shifted. Are you saying you have information about the missing person from Sacramento? I froze. This was exactly what I'd been afraid of. Look, I don't want to get her in trouble. I just want to make sure she's safe. The dispatcher sighed. Ma'am, we can't help unless you come down and give a statement. Where are you located? I opened my mouth to answer, but something inside me said, don't, not yet. I didn't even know who to trust. I'll call back, I said quickly, hanging up before she could respond. I sank onto the couch, staring at the note. My mind was spinning. Emily had left voluntarily, maybe to protect me. But from what? Or who? I dialed Jenna next. She answered on the second ring, sounding half asleep. Harper? It's 2 a.m. She's gone, Jenna. Emily's gone. There was a pause. What do you mean gone? I woke up and the door was wide open. She left a note. Says not to trust him. I don't know what it means. Jenna groaned softly. Harper, I told you this would happen. You're too involved. You don't even know who this girl really is. She's scared, I insisted. She's running from something. Or she's running toward something, Jenna shot back. Think about it. Fake name, lies about her past. Now she disappears in the middle of the night. You're not the first person she's fooled. Her words stung, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Jenna was missing something, that we were. After I hung up, I sat in silence, the apartment feeling smaller with every passing second. Then my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I hesitated, thumb hovering over the screen before answering. Hello? Nothing but static. Then a voice. Low, calm, and familiar. If you care about her, the man said, stop digging. The line went dead. For a moment, I just stared at my reflection in the black screen, my pulse thundering in my ears. I played the message back, and there was no mistaking it. It was Ethan's voice. He knew my number. He knew where I was. I ran to the window, pulling back the curtain just enough to peek outside. The street was empty, but the paranoia had already settled in. I could feel it crawling under my... I double-checked the locks again. Every door, every window. Then I went back to the purse. Desperate for anything, any clue that might explain what I turned the purse upside down, emptying everything onto the counter. Tissues, a half-used tube of lip balm, a few crumpled receipts, and one folded photograph I hadn't seen before. I smoothed it out with shaking hands. It was Emily, or Rachel, smiling in the sunlight. Her hair was shorter, her face brighter, softer. She was holding a little girl, maybe 4 years old, with the same brown eyes, same gentle smile. On the back of the photo, written in ink, were the words, For my Lily, love always, Mom. I felt the beige air leave my lungs. She wasn't just running from a husband. She was running to protect her child. And if Ethan had really found her, what would he do to find the little girl, too? A noise outside made me jump, the faint rumble of a car engine somewhere down the street. I turned off the lights, heart hammering, crouching near the window. Headlights flashed once across the apartment wall, then disappeared. The engine faded into the distance. I stayed awake the rest of the night, clutching that photo like a lifeline. Every creak, every sound felt like a threat. And when dawn finally came, the sunlight spilling through the blinds, I realized 2 things. 1, Emily hadn't vanished because she wanted to. She'd left because she had no choice. And 2, whatever danger she'd been running from, had now found me. The photo changed everything. She wasn't just running from a husband, she was hiding a child. I couldn't stop staring at the photo. The edges were worn, the colors faded, but the love in that image was unmistakable. Emily, or Rachel, stood in the sunlight, smiling in a way I'd never seen her smile before. In her arms, a little girl with big brown eyes grinned up at the camera, her small hands clutching her mother's shirt. On the back, written in neat, looping handwriting, "For my Lily, love always, Mom. Lily." The name echoed in my head like a bell. If Rachel had a daughter, then this wasn't just about a marriage gone wrong. She wasn't just hiding from her husband. She was protecting her child. I sat at the kitchen table, the photo between my hands, trying to make sense of it. A child changes everything. Every risk, every decision, every lie she'd told. And if Ethan really had found her, what would he do if he knew where Lily was? My laptop was still open from the night before. I typed Rachel Moore, daughter Lily, into the search bar. A dozen results appeared, most of them old news clippings and missing person updates. One headline stood out: Mother and child vanish after domestic disturbance, husband under investigation. I clicked it, heart pounding. According to the article, Rachel Moore and her 4-year-old daughter Lily disappeared the same night police were called to the Moore residence for a domestic dispute. Neighbors reported screaming. By the time officers arrived, both mother and child were gone. Ethan Moore claimed Rachel had taken the girl and run off. Police never found them. Until now, maybe. The pieces were falling into place. The fake name, the fear, the constant checking over her shoulder. She'd done everything to disappear, and somehow she'd almost succeeded. I leaned back in my chair, feeling sick. What if she'd left last night to draw Ethan away from me? To protect me the same way she'd protected her daughter? I couldn't sit still. The idea of her being back in his hands made my stomach twist. I had to know. The last place I'd seen. Ethan's SUV was parked outside the café, but he could have gone anywhere. I started calling motels along the coastal highway, pretending to be a relative looking for a family member. Most places hadn't seen anything, until the Bayview Inn answered. The woman at the front desk sounded tired but polite. A man checked in yesterday afternoon. Tall, expensive suit, drove a black SUV. Had a young woman with him. She looked upset. My grip on the phone tightened. Are they still there? No, she said. They checked out early this morning. She was crying. He paid cash. My throat went dry. Did you get a license plate? Sorry, ma'am, I didn't, but he called her Rachel. It felt like the floor dropped out from under me. He'd found her. I hung up and sat there in silence for a long time. My reflection stared back at me from the dark window, pale, hollow-eyed, terrified. This wasn't just some stranger's story anymore. I was part of it now, whether I liked it or not. I needed help, but not from the local sheriff's office. I couldn't trust anyone who might already know Ethan. He had money, connections, charm. Men like him always did. Then I remembered Carla Monroe, an old friend from college who'd become a detective in Portland. She wasn't part of the local network. She wouldn't be swayed by money or influence. I found her number buried in my contacts and dialed. She answered on the third ring, her voice groggy but familiar. Harper? Wow, it's been ages. What's wrong? Carla, I said, trying not to sound hysterical. I need your help. I think I found someone from a missing persons case. Her name's Rachel Moore. That woke her up. Rachel Moore. From Sacramento? That's a high-profile case. Where are you calling from? Oregon Coast. She came to work at my cafe under the name Emily. Her husband, Ethan Moore, found her. I think he's taken her again. There was silence on the line. Then Carla's tone hardened. Listen to me, Harper. Don't go anywhere near him. He's dangerous. I've seen parts of that file. It's bad. What kind of bad? Carla hesitated. Rachel filed reports about threats, stalking, even evidence that Ethan had people watching her. When she disappeared, the cops assumed she was dead. Some said he paid them off to drop it. The case went quiet after that. I swallowed hard. Can you find out where he is now, if she's with him? I can check, but I have to be discreet. If he's using his own name, there'll be records. If not, she sighed. He's smart, Harper. He'll have covered his tracks. Stay put. Don't talk to anyone else about this. I can't just do nothing, I said. Promise me, she insisted. If he's out there, you're not safe either. We hung up, but her warning echoed in my head long after. That afternoon was torture. Every time a car passed by the cafe window, I jumped. Every unfamiliar face made my pulse spike. I thought about Emily's small, shaky smile, the way she'd flinched at Ethan's name, the way she'd said he'd never stop. She'd been right. As evening fell, I sat by the window, clutching the photo again. Rachel holding Lily, the kind of joy that only comes from love, a love she was willing to sacrifice everything to protect. I thought about my own life, about the years I'd wasted letting fear define me after my divorce. Maybe that's why I couldn't walk away now. Maybe I saw a part of myself in her, someone who just wanted to be free. The phone rang just after 9. I snatched it up, praying it was Carla. It was, but her voice wasn't calm anymore. It was urgent, breathless. Harper, listen to me. You need to get out of your house. I stood up, heart pounding. What? Why? He knows who you are, she said. Ethan. He's been tracking everyone who's tried to contact Rachel, including me. There's a record of your call. He's coming for you next. The line went dead. For a second, I just stood there, frozen, the world narrowing to the sound of my own breathing. Then I turned toward the darkened window. Across the street, a car engine rumbled to life, and when the headlights flared, I saw the unmistakable gleam of a black SUV. By the time I grabbed my keys, someone was already inside. The sound came from the living room, a soft creak, deliberate and slow. For a second, I thought it was just the building settling, the way old apartments sometimes do at night. But then I heard it again. Footsteps, not outside, inside. I froze. My phone was on the counter across the kitchen. My keys were hanging by the door. The rain outside was pounding against the windows, muffling every sound, making it impossible to tell where he was. I took a silent breath and crouched behind the kitchen counter, my heart thudding so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. Harper, a man's voice called softly, calm, controlled, familiar. Ethan. My blood ran cold. Harper, I just want to talk, he said. His tone was polite, almost casual, like we were old friends catching up. You've gotten yourself involved in something you don't understand. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. From the crack under the counter, I saw the faintest shadow move across the living room floor, his shoes gliding silently over the hardwood. How did you get in? I whispered under my breath, too quiet for him to hear. Then I saw it, a glint of metal in his hand. Not a gun, something small and silver. When he turned slightly, the light caught it, and my stomach dropped. It was Emily's locket. He turned it over in his fingers, staring at it almost tenderly. She kept this, he murmured. All this time. I wanted to scream, to lunge at him, but I couldn't. Fear had pinned me in place. My phone buzzed on the counter above me, the vibration loud, enough to make me flinch. Ethan's head snapped toward the sound. Harper? I lunged for the phone, grabbed it, and bolted toward the back door. He shouted my name, his footsteps pounding after me. The door swung open, the cold rain hitting my face like needles. I didn't look back. I sprinted to my car, fumbling with the keys, hands shaking so badly I dropped them twice before managing to unlock the door. The second I slammed it shut, the porch light flickered, and there he was, standing in the doorway, watching me. For a moment, our eyes met through the rain-streaked windshield. Then I peeled out of the driveway, tires screeching on the wet pavement. I drove without thinking, my hands white-knuckled on the wheel, the wipers struggling to keep up. My breath came in shallow gasps, every shadow on the road a potential trap. When I finally felt safe enough to grab my phone, I called Carla. She answered immediately. Harper, where are you? He was in my house, I said, my voice trembling. Ethan, he's got Emily's locket. He was inside. Listen to me, Carla said firmly. I've already sent your information to a state contact. A warrant is being prepared for Ethan's arrest, but you have to stay hidden until morning. Do not go home. Do not tell anyone where you are. Where do I go? Anywhere public but small, somewhere quiet, low traffic, a roadside inn, pay in cash, and, Harper? What? Turn off your phone's location. I did as she said, my fingers trembling as I switched it off. The darkness that followed was suffocating, but necessary. After driving for almost an hour, I found a small inn off Highway 9. The neon sign flickered, half the letters burnt out. The parking lot was empty except for an old pickup truck. Perfect. The woman at the front desk barely looked up as I handed her cash and asked for a room. I didn't give my real name. I couldn't risk it. The room was small. One bed, one window, a peeling floral curtain. But it was warm, and for the first time in hours, I felt like I could breathe. I locked the door, pushed a chair under the handle, and collapsed onto the bed, still wearing my rain-soaked clothes. I tried to call Carla again, but there was no answer. Straight to voicemail. I left a message anyway. I'm safe for now. Call me when you can. It was nearly dawn before exhaustion finally won. When I woke, the rain had stopped, and pale light filtered through the curtains. For a brief second, I thought maybe it was over. Maybe Ethan had given up. Then I saw it. A single sheet of paper slipped under the door. My heart skipped. I got up slowly, staring at it. The paper was damp at the edges, ink bleeding slightly from the rain outside. I bent down, picked it up, and read the message. You're next. No signature, no explanation. Just those 2 words. My knees almost gave out. I stumbled back, scanning the window. The curtains moved slightly in the breeze. Had I left them open? I couldn't remember. I dropped to the floor, heart hammering, peering through the narrow crack between the curtain and the glass. Nothing. The parking lot was empty. But the note? That meant he'd been here. He knew where I was, which meant he was tracking me. My phone, my car, something. I grabbed my bag and ran outside. The innkeeper was standing behind the desk, startled as I came rushing through. Did anyone come here this morning? I demanded. She blinked. Not that I saw. Why? Something wrong? I didn't answer. I sprinted to my car, checking the windows, the bumpers, underneath, and that's when I saw it. A small black device, no bigger than a lighter, wedged just above the back wheel well. A tracker. My breath caught. I ripped it off, threw it into the bushes, and got in the car, shaking uncontrollably. He'd known where I was the whole time. I turned my phone on just long enough to call Carla again. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Nothing. By the 5th try, panic had turned to dread. Carla wouldn't ignore my calls, not after what she'd said last night. I switched on the radio to distract myself, flipping through static until a faint local news broadcast came through. The words barely registered at first, until they did. Portland detective reported missing earlier this morning. Authorities have identified her as Detective Carla Monroe. Her car was found abandoned along Interstate 5. Investigation ongoing. The world tilted. My vision blurred. Carla, gone. My only ally, gone. For a long time, I just sat there in the car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my hands hurt. The sunlight glared off the windshield, blinding me, but I didn't move. Because suddenly, I realized the truth I'd been avoiding since this all began. This wasn't a coincidence. Ethan wasn't just tracking Rachel. He was hunting anyone who tried to help her. And now, that meant me. When the detective vanished, I knew this went deeper than just a jealous husband. The morning after I heard the report about Carla's disappearance, something inside me broke. She wasn't just another victim. She was the only person who'd tried to help. And now she was gone, just like Emily, just like everyone who got too close. It would have been easier to run, to pack up and leave town, drive until the map turned blank. But running had gotten Emily nowhere. It had gotten Carla killed. Or worse. So I did the one thing everyone had told me not to do. I went looking. Carla's car had been found near the river, about 20 miles outside Portland. I drove there that afternoon, my nerves thrumming like live wires. The area was cordoned off with yellow tape, but no one was around now, just the rustle of leaves and the hum of water below. Her sedan sat half submerged in mud, the driver's side door hanging open. No blood, no sign of a struggle. It looked like she'd just stepped out and vanished into thin air. I scanned the ground around it, my shoes sinking into the wet earth. That's when I noticed a torn page fluttering near the brush, a small black notebook, half buried in mud. Carla's handwriting covered every page, cramped and hurried. I wiped the dirt off and flipped through it, heart racing. Most of it was shorthand and scribbles I didn't understand, names, dates, numbers, until I reached a section marked More Investigation, Unsolved. Her notes were fragmented, but damning. Ethan Moore, suspected of laundering funds through wife's family's shipping company. Rachel discovered irregularities in business accounts, threatened exposure. 2 days later, house fire. Rachel plus child presumed dead. No bodies recovered. Possible cover-up. Local police paid off. Track funds to offshore accounts. Storage unit under alias E. Marks. I stopped breathing for a moment. Storage unit. Carla had written the address. An industrial park on the outskirts of town. The truth began to take shape. Not just a story of abuse and fear, but something calculated, organized, evil. Ethan hadn't just wanted to control Rachel. He'd needed her silence. She'd uncovered something massive, and when she threatened to expose him, he'd decided to erase her instead. But she'd survived. Somehow, she'd escaped with Lily, and when she walked into my cafe under a new name, she was still running from the man who'd tried to erase her existence. I turned the last page of the notebook and found a small flash drive taped inside. My hands shook as I pulled it free and plugged it into my laptop once I was safely back in my car. A single audio file appeared. The timestamp was from 3 nights ago. I hit play. At first I heard nothing but static, then a woman's voice. Rachel's voice. "If you're hearing this," she said, her tone breathless and urgent, "he knows about Lily. Don't let him find her, please. Don't trust anyone who says they're helping. He owns everything, the cops, the lawyers, all of it. I'm sorry." The recording ended there, cutting off mid-breath. I sat in silence, gripping the steering wheel, my chest tight. The sound of her voice made her real again. Not just a mystery, not a headline, but a woman terrified for her child. And Ethan was closing in. I thought about calling the police again, but Carla's words echoed in my head. He owns everything. If what she wrote was true, he'd already buried the truth once. He'd do it again. No, this time I was going to find Rachel myself. I drove to the address Carla had written down. The storage facility sat at the end of a lonely industrial road, surrounded by chain-link fencing and flickering security lights. Most of the units were dark. The sign on the office door read, "Closed." I parked a block away and waited until dusk. The rain had started again, soft and steady, masking my footsteps as I slipped through a loose section of fence. Unit number 117, according to the notes. I moved quietly through the rows until I found it. A rusted blue door with a new padlock. Carla's scribbled code matched the digits etched faintly into the side. My hands shook as I used a screwdriver from my car kit to pry the lock open. It snapped with a dull crack. Inside, the air was cold and damp. The beam from my flashlight swept over boxes, furniture, old files stacked haphazardly, and then something caught the light. A silver chain glinting faintly beneath a tarp. I pulled the tarp aside. A chair, rope, duct tape, and someone sitting there, barely moving, head bowed, wrists bound. For a second, I thought it was a trick of the light. Then I heard the faintest sound, a soft, ragged breath. "Rachel," I whispered, dropping to my knees beside her. Her face lifted weakly. Her skin was pale, her lips cracked, her eyes sunken but unmistakable. "Harper," she rasped. Tears burned my eyes. "Oh my God, you're alive!" She shook her head faintly. He knows you helped me. You have to." Her voice broke off, her eyes rolling back. I tore the ropes from her wrists, my hands trembling, whispering her name again and again. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. And just as I lifted her into my arms, headlights flared through the cracks in the storage door. Blinding, harsh, unmistakable. Someone was out there. I froze, clutching Rachel tighter, and from beyond the metal walls came the sound of a car door slamming, and footsteps, slow and steady, drawing closer. She was alive, but she whispered something that made my blood run cold. "Rachel," I whispered, shaking her gently. Her eyelids fluttered open, and for the first time since I met her, I saw the real woman behind all the names. The mother, the survivor. Her face was pale and bruised, her pulse faint but steady. She tried to speak, but her voice came out as a rasp. "He'll find us," she murmured. "He always does." "No, he won't," I said, forcing calm into my voice. "You're safe now. I'm getting you out of here." Her head shook weakly. "You don't understand. He's everywhere." I glanced toward the door, the glow of headlights still spilling through the cracks. Whoever was outside was close. Maybe it was Ethan. Maybe someone else. I couldn't wait to find out. "Can you walk?" She nodded faintly. I wrapped my arm around her and half carried her to the back of the unit, where a small service exit stood partly hidden behind shelves. The rain outside masked our footsteps as we slipped through. My car was parked down the street, engine still warm. I got her inside, cranked it up, and pulled away without looking back. For several miles, neither of us spoke. The only sounds were the rain hitting the windshield and Rachel's ragged breathing. Finally, when we reached a stretch of empty highway, she spoke again, voice trembling, but stronger. "I had to give her away," she said suddenly. "Who?" She turned her head toward me, eyes glassy with tears. "My daughter. Lily." My grip tightened on the wheel. "Rachel." "I couldn't keep her with me," she continued, her words tumbling out in a rush. "After I escaped, I knew he'd never stop hunting me. He needed control. Over me. Over everything. I left Lily with a family I trusted. They live off the grid, no records, no connection to me. It was the only way to keep her safe." Tears blurred my vision. "You did what you had to do." She shook her head. "He found out. Somehow, he found out where I'd gone after. That's why he started killing everyone who helped me. My friend in Sacramento, the woman who gave me the new ID. Even Carla." My breath caught. "He killed Carla?" Rachel's lip quivered. "She tried to protect me. She found out about his contacts in law enforcement. He caught her before she could get away." The weight of it hit me all at once. Carla's warning, her missing car, the silence on the other end of the phone. I clenched my jaw. "Then we'll make sure she didn't die for nothing. I'll get you somewhere safe, and we'll tell someone who can actually stop him." "There's no one," Rachel whispered. "He owns too many people." But I refused to believe that. There had to be someone who wasn't corrupt, someone who could expose him. We drove for nearly 2 hours before I realized I didn't even know where we were going. My only thought was to put as much distance between us and Ethan as possible. The rain had turned into a downpour again, and visibility was terrible. Rachel sat silently beside me, staring out the window, her fingers clutching Emily's locket, the same one Ethan had been holding in my house. "Rachel," I said after a while, "why didn't you tell me from the start who you were?" She gave a weak laugh. "Would you have believed me? A woman with a fake name, no ID, running from a husband who can buy his way out of anything?" She looked at me then, her expression hollow. "Everyone stops believing victims when their abusers have power. I thought you'd send me away." "I wouldn't have," I said softly. "Not after seeing how scared you were." Her eyes filled with tears. "You remind me of her," she whispered. "Of Lily. You have that same kind of courage, the kind I never had." We drove in silence again. The farther we got from town, the darker it became. No streetlights, no passing cars, just the endless hiss of rain. Then Rachel stiffened suddenly, her hand flying to her chest. "Harper, slow down." I glanced over. "What's wrong?" She pointed to the side mirror. "Headlights. They've been behind us for 10 minutes. I checked. She was right. A pair of distant lights glowed in the fog, too steady to be random. My pulse quickened. I pressed harder on the gas, but the lights stayed with us. Rachel's breathing quickened. "He found us. I told you." "Not yet," I said. "We're not letting him catch us." I veered off the highway onto an old logging road, gravel crunching beneath the tires, and killed the headlights. We crawled in darkness until the main road disappeared from view. "We can't just keep driving," Rachel whispered. "There's an old cabin near here," she said suddenly, pointing ahead. "It used to belong to my aunt before she passed. He doesn't know about it. It's hidden near the ridge." That was all I needed to hear. I followed her directions through the twisting road until the cabin came into view. Small, weathered, nearly swallowed by the forest. When we stepped inside, the air was heavy with dust and the faint scent of pine. I locked the door behind us and drew the curtains tight. Rachel sank onto the couch, shivering. I found a blanket and draped it over her. You'll be safe here. I'll make sure of it. She looked up at me, eyes full of gratitude and exhaustion. You don't have to stay, Harper. You've already done enough. Yes, I do, I said. You're not alone anymore. She smiled weakly, then closed her eyes, whispering something so faint I almost missed it. He's not working alone. I froze. What? Her eyelids fluttered. Ethan, there's someone in law enforcement, a man named Hale. He's been protecting Ethan for years. Every call you've made, every message, he's traced them. He's been listening. My stomach twisted. That's why Carla's calls went dead. That's why Ethan always seemed one step ahead. Every move we'd made, every word we'd spoken, he'd known. I checked my phone, but it was already too late. Even turned off, it could be tracked. I pulled out the battery and tossed it into the fireplace. Rachel opened her eyes again, whispering, "It won't matter. He's already coming." "No," I said, crouching beside her. "He doesn't know where we are, not this place." But even as I said it, a distant noise made my blood run cold. The faint crunch of tires on gravel outside. Rachel's eyes widened in terror. I rushed to the window, peeking through a sliver of curtain. Headlights cut through the darkness, bright and unrelenting, sweeping over the trees like searchlights. A car door slammed, then another. I turned to Rachel. "Get down!" Her voice trembled. "It's him." The cabin went still, save for the whisper of rain against the roof. And then 3 sharp knocks at the door. He found us, but this time I was ready. The knocks came again, harder this time, rattling the frame. Rachel's trembling hand clutched mine. "He's here," she whispered. I'd been expecting this moment, dreading it, but fear only held power if I let it. I took a deep breath and forced myself into motion. "Downstairs," I said, guiding her toward the narrow steps leading to the cabin's basement. "Stay quiet. Don't come out until I say." "Harper." "Please," I said firmly. "Trust me." Her eyes glistened with tears, but she nodded and disappeared into the shadows below. I turned back to the living room, locking the basement door behind her. My hands were shaking, but my mind was clear. For the first time since this nightmare began, I wasn't running. I was fighting back. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the small revolver Carla had given me weeks earlier. Her insurance policy, she'd called it. I'd never thought I'd actually use it. Now it felt like the only thing standing between us and the monster outside. The knocking stopped. Silence pressed against the cabin walls. Then a voice, smooth, calm, confident, cut through the rain. "Harper," Ethan called. "Open the door. I'm not here to hurt you." I could hear the lie in his voice, that familiar condescending tone he probably used when convincing Rachel everything was fine. I gripped the gun tighter and stayed silent. "You've made this much harder than it had to be," he continued. "Rachel belongs with me. You don't even know what she's done." I aimed the gun toward the door, my pulse hammering. "I know enough." A pause. Then the sound of wood splintering. Once, twice, before the door burst open under the weight of his kick. He stepped inside, rain dripping from his coat, his eyes gleaming in the dim light. "You shouldn't have interfered," he said, his voice low, almost pitying. "You could have just walked away." "I couldn't," I said. "You don't get to destroy people and walk free." He took a step closer, his expression shifting from calm to rage. "Do you really think anyone will believe you? A washed-up cafe owner versus a man with half the state in his pocket?" I steadied the gun. "Try me." He smirked, that cruel, confident smirk I'd seen in every monster who thought control made them invincible. "You won't shoot. You're not like me." I didn't answer. He lunged. The world went white. Chaos, movement, noise. We crashed into the table, the gun slipping from my hand. He was stronger than I'd expected, his fingers tightening around my throat. I kicked, shoved, clawed at his arm, gasping for air. "You think you're saving her?" he hissed. "She ruined me. She took my daughter, my money, my life. She saved that child from you," I rasped. The words made him falter, just enough for me to grab the gun lying inches away. I didn't think. I didn't hesitate. I pulled the trigger. The sound was deafening. He stumbled back, eyes wide in shock, a dark bloom spreading across his shirt. For a moment, he just stared at me, then collapsed to the floor. My chest heaved, my ears ringing. The gun slipped from my trembling hand and clattered to the wood. I stood there frozen, staring down at him, the man who had haunted Rachel's every waking moment, finally still. Then the door burst open again, this time with shouting. "Police, drop your weapon!" I raised my hands, sobbing, as two uniformed officers stormed in, guns drawn. Behind them, through the rain, I saw a familiar face. Jenna. She was soaked, shaking, tears mixing with rain. "Harper!" she cried, running inside. "Oh my God, are you okay?" I could barely speak. How did you find me?" "You didn't answer your phone. I traced your location using that cloud app you made me install," she said breathlessly. "I called the state police. They got here as fast as they could." Relief hit me so hard it almost knocked me down. They secured the cabin, confirmed Ethan was dead, and called for backup. The officers led Rachel up from the basement, where she collapsed into my arms, sobbing. "It's over," I whispered. "You're safe now." But deep down, I knew it wasn't truly over. Not yet. The next few weeks passed in a blur of statements, court filings, and endless questions. For the first time, Ethan's crimes saw the light. Carla's notebook and the flash drive she'd hidden in it revealed everything. The shell companies, the bribed officers, the offshore accounts. One of those names, Officer Hale, matched the man Rachel had warned me about. The one who'd fed Ethan information, erased reports, and protected him for years. He was arrested the same week Ethan's body was buried. Rachel's testimony sealed the case. She told the court everything: the abuse, the threats, the night of the fire, and how she'd faked her own death to protect her daughter. When she finally said the words, "He can't hurt us anymore," there wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom. A month later, I sat in the front row as the judge handed down his ruling. Life sentences, no parole, justice. Afterward, Rachel hugged me tightly. She looked healthier, her cheeks fuller, her eyes brighter. "You gave me back my life," she whispered. "You didn't have to help me, but you did." I smiled through tears. "You would have done the same." She shook her head. "No, I would have been too scared." "But you weren't." A week later, I met her again, not in a courtroom, but at a park on the edge of town. She was standing under a maple tree, hand in hand with a little girl who had the same brown eyes and warm smile as in the photo I'd found. "Harper?" Rachel said softly. "This is Lily." The little girl smiled shyly. "Mom says you're the one who made the bad man go away." I knelt down, tears blurring my vision. "Your mom's the brave one, sweetheart." Rachel and Lily drove away that evening, heading to a new life somewhere safe. She didn't tell me where, and I didn't ask. Some secrets are better left untouched. Months passed, the leaves turned gold, and the world began to quiet again. I reopened my cafe. People came back slowly, drawn by the smell of coffee and the faint comfort of routine. From the outside, everything looked the same. The small bell on the door, the rain tapping on the windows. But inside me, everything had changed. Some nights I'd catch myself glancing at the door, half expecting her to walk in again, smiling that quiet, grateful smile. Then one morning, an envelope arrived. No return address. Inside was a letter written in neat, familiar handwriting. "Dear Harper, you saved more than just my life. You saved Lily's future, too. We're safe. We're free. Thank you for believing me when no one else would. Rachel." A small photo slipped out with it. Rachel and Lily standing in the sunlight, smiling. I placed the letter in my drawer, beside the old driver's license that once said Rachel Moore. For a long moment, I just stared at it, my chest tight with emotion. She said her name was Emily, but she'll always be Rachel to me. In the end, the truth didn't just save Rachel, it set both of us free. I learned that sometimes, helping a stranger can pull you into their darkest storm, but it can also bring you the peace you didn't know you were missing. The cafe feels different now. Quieter, heavier, yet somehow more alive. I still keep her old ID in my drawer, not as a reminder of the lies she told, but of the courage it took to start over. She said her name was Emily, but to me, she'll always be Rachel, the woman who taught me what survival really looks like. Some stories remind us that danger doesn't always knock. Sometimes it walks right through the door wearing a smile. If this story pulled you in or made you hold your breath, you already know what to do. Stay with me for the next one, because behind every name, there's a truth waiting to be uncovered. But tell me this. If you found out someone close to you was living under a false identity, would you protect their secret or expose it?